Again, St. Louis, thank you so much for joining us for What Retirement Means to You with Jerry Means. He is the founder of the Means Financial Group. Jerry, how are you doing this week?
I'm doing fantastic. How are you doing, Spike?
Very good, very good. In fact, I'm very excited about this program that we've put together here today because you wanted to talk about income solutions for today's retiree, and there's a lot of worries out there. There's a lot of different tools. There's a lot of good information, and unfortunately, sometimes a lot of misinformation. I want to see if you can help us find our way through the forest a little bit today.
All right, sounds good to me.
Well, I had a question out there, and this is something that I get a lot when we talk to people. We do live events. We get call-ins from the television show, and they've said this. They've read a lot about annuities, and some people are worried that annuities can be risky investments, that they can have very high fees, that they can be illiquid. What are your thoughts about using annuities, let's say, as an income stream when you're in retirement? Do these things sound true to you, especially with risky?
So I will tell you that I love annuities, but only the right annuity for the right person. When you're talking about the risky annuities, you're talking about a variable annuity. And they just have your standard market risk, right? You put the money into a variable annuity, it's a contract with an insurance carrier, but it has an underlying investment portfolio. So they call them sub-accounts, but they're mutual funds, okay? So most of the viewers there, you understand what a mutual fund is. So what they're gonna do is they're gonna take the money, they're gonna divide it up to maybe 3 or 4 different funds, and maybe there's 30 different options there. And if the portfolio goes down in value, so if you put 100,000 in or $1 million in, and it drops 20% and you're down to 800,000 or 80,000, whatever the dollar amount is, if you need to pull that money out, that's your value, right? You're gonna take that hit. But if you pass away, it leaves your beneficiaries your original investment. There's a death benefit there. Now here's the caveat to that. You pay for that death benefit. And usually it's called a mortality and expense fee. It's usually around 1.25%. The mutual funds have a fee, usually around 1%. There can be an administrative fee of 0.15. I've seen people or advisors put advisory fees on top of that. Then you add rider fees. Not uncommon for someone to be paying 3 to 4% a year in fees inside a variable annuity.
Oh, wow.
So I will not offer you a variable annuity unless I don't like you.
Okay, all right.
You know, and again, I'm working in the retirement market. You know, the person that I'm looking to help is 50 and over. You know, they're looking to maybe get a little bit more conservative. They can see retirement on the horizon, and they want to start strategizing for that, right? They're not in that accumulation phase anymore where they're just throwing money at their qualified plan and, you know, taking the ups and downs of the market and saying, well, over time it'll do well. Well, if you're within 10 years of retirement, you don't have that time horizon, right? So I'm not dealing with a lot of people that a variable annuity is going to be a fit for. Maybe if you're 20, 30, 40, maybe, as long as you understand the fees that you're going to pay.
Yeah.
But there are other types of annuities that I do really like and that are great for income planning for retirees.
Okay, all right. Well, I want to ask you a little bit about those then. I also want to ask you about the phrase illiquid, or people saying they're worried about that. But what are the kinds of annuities that you like? Let's start there.
So there's a traditional fixed annuity where you just get a fixed rate of return for a certain period of years. Maybe you buy a 3-year fixed annuity or a 5-year fixed annuity. Now, traditionally, the longer the term, the better the interest rate's gonna be because the insurance carrier is gonna have that money longer. It gives them more time to make money on your money so they can give you a higher interest rate. The illiquid part of it, though, is if you surrender it before the end of that term, you're gonna pay a surrender charge. But most contracts, and the ones that I like to offer, have a 10% liquidity feature, which means basically every year after the first calendar year, you have 10% of that portfolio that you can pull out. So if you have $100,000 in one of these annuities, you know, that's $10,000 a year that you can pull out. you probably don't want to pull out more than 10% of your portfolio anyway per year, or you're going to run out of money for sure. So when they say illiquid, they're talking about cashing out the whole contract. They're not necessarily talking about just pulling money out each year for income.
Right. I mean, in a way, your 401k, that's just as illiquid. I mean, if you're before the age of 59 and a half, if you pulled out funds, you'd have penalty and tax thrown on it. So, yeah, I get what you're saying, that word illiquid, I think, is something that's thrown around. But if you can pull a certain amount out, or you're allowed to stop the contract when the contract is done, it's not any more illiquid than other investments that you've been using.
Correct. And also to add to that, most contracts, like the variable annuity, charges a fee for the death benefit, but in a fixed annuity, you can't lose, so they don't have to charge you for that death benefit, but they waive all the surrender charges and will pay out the full value if you pass away before the end of the term. They also have, most of them have terminal illness riders, so it's not a fun thing to talk about, obviously, but if a doctor says, hey, you're terminally ill, you have 12 months to live, they will let you pull the money out of your contract without paying any type of surrender charge so that you can get medical care or travel and do things that you want to do or gift the money away. A lot of them will do that for long-term care as well. So if you're confined to a nursing home and you need to use that money to pay for care, now I suggest having other ways of doing that, but if you do need to self-fund and pull that money out, most of the contracts out there will waive those surrender charges for nursing home care.
And one thing I want to make clear to the viewers out there, you are the founder of the Means Financial Group. You are a financial advisor. And although we have been talking about annuities, this isn't the only part of your practice as well, right? You're also into the wealth management, making sure that everybody's got portfolios that get all the way through retirement. You also do some tax review and estate planning, correct? The Means Financial Group, it's not just about an insurance product group.
No, I'm an investment advisor representative. So we do investment portfolios, model portfolios, and that's what we usually use for the back end of your retirement. That's your growth part of the strategy. So we want to get you a reasonable rate of return on your money that we're going to draw income from. But what we don't want is to have that money in the market drops down, and now you have to have a fire sale on your investments to pull the money out while the market was down. I mean, that was part of the reason that they passed the CARES Act that said that people didn't have to take the required minimum distributions out of their IRAs for that year when the pandemic was at its height, is because they realized the stock market, now it V'd and came right back, but they didn't know that was going to happen when they passed that act. They thought these people's accounts are going to be down for, probably another year. We don't want them to have to pull their RMD out if they don't need it. And that was part of the reason, is they understood this is really going to hurt America if they're pulling money out of their assets while the market is down.
Right.
The way I structure it, I like to have it in 3 buckets. You have that emergency liquid bucket, then you have that middle bucket where we're going to design that income plan, and we don't want that to be at the whims of the market. We want to have a strategy for that that's going to hopefully provide guaranteed future income, and annuities are a great tool for that. But then you still want to have some money in the market for that long-term growth, maybe for the back end of your retirement, and you can take some of those ups and downs, and that's where we use our model portfolios.
Right. Jerry, we're going to take a very short break. What I'd like to do when we get back is we're going to talk about Social Security. We know that there are a lot of folks out there that are worried about hearing about this possible reduction 10 years from now. Is your Social Security going to get a haircut down the road from now? And what would that mean to your own retirement income plan? So Jerry today is providing you retirement income solutions. But before we go away to break, make sure that you call and ask for your own on-track retirement review. It is totally complimentary. He's going to take a look at your investments, all of those fees that he was talking about. Are you paying too much in fees in an annuity or inside your investments? Call the phone number you see right here, 844-878-1293. More with Jerry Means and what retirement means to you, St. Louis, when we get back right after this.
How confident are you in your current financial plan? Do you know with certainty how the recent market volatility will affect your future hopes and dreams? How much are you paying in taxes? And how much are you losing to unnecessary high fees? You didn't work to save this money so that you could spend your time worried in retirement. Now is the time to take charge of your finances so you can feel confident about your future. Call in during the next 30 minutes of today's show only to set up an absolutely complimentary, no obligation, full-blown financial review that will result in your own customized written plan that we're giving away complimentary to the first 10 people who respond. We'll start with a full-blown analysis of what you already have. by running a report to untangle how much you are currently paying in fees, how you're allocated for risk, and what it's costing to work with your current advisor. Next, we'll identify your goals. Where do you see yourself in the next 5 years? Where do you want to go, and who do you hope to go there with? Is your current financial plan set up to get you there without mishap? Let's design a roadmap to create a financial plan you can follow with confidence. Get the piece that so many people are missing from their retirement. Find out how having a written plan can make a difference to your retirement dreams. Call now to schedule your complimentary, no-obligation, full-blown financial review today.
Welcome back to What Retirement Means to You with Jerry Means. I am Spike Spangle, St. Louis, and what I was saying before the break is we're going to talk a little bit about Social Security. Look, Social Security was invented back in the 1930s. I think we both know, but maybe the viewers out there don't quite grasp the idea that Social Security was never meant to be a 20 or 30-year or 35-year solution to our retirement. And it's a little rickety. And then there's this other thing out there called the debt clock. We're over $30 trillion in debt. Are people paying enough attention to what could happen to Social Security down the road?
I think it's a big concern of people. And what you need to realize is, like you said, it came about in the 1930s. And in the beginning, everyone was eligible for full benefits at age 65. Today, it depends on your birth date, right? Maybe you're 66 in 8 months, or maybe, it's 67 and, is your retirement age. But when the government put that into play, they were banking on people retiring at 65 and maybe passing away at 67, 68, maybe 70. They really were not planning for people to live to be 90, 95, 100.
The average lifespan for a man back in the 1930s was 58 years old.
Yeah.
So if they got to 65, it was like, hey, here's a bridge loan on us. You get a year or two on us and probably pass away. But now, I mean, life expectancy is well into our 70s, early mid 80s for women as far as average. So it's putting a lot of stress. There's also something about the amount of workers who pay into it today as compared to back then. I think it was something like 40 to 1. Today, the amount of workers for those who are retired is a 3 to 1 ratio.
And a lot of that was part of the baby boomer generation, right? So we're having baby boomers now are retiring, and we don't have as many people paying in as we are retiring, and they're living longer. I have clients that already have drawn Social Security for 25 years. Mm-hmm. The government did not bank on that. And so that's what they need to understand.
So we talked a little bit in this first segment about how you might use a proper annuity, if it fits for you, as part of an income stream, because we're talking about income streams today in retirement. Social Security, do you still think it'll be there for everyone? Or what about, let's talk about people who are in Social Security right now. Will it still be there for them 10 years from now?
I think it will be, but if you go to the socialsecurity.gov website, you can see right on their website, I think it's 2034, they're saying that there may be a reduction if things don't change. And you mentioned the $30 trillion debt, right?
Yeah.
That's just the national debt. When you look at other things, other benefits that they have planned on funding, the debt is a lot higher than that. So there is a possibility that sometime in the future, they're going to reduce benefits. So what are you going to do? If you're used to that paycheck, right? We know inflation is on the rise. We know that you may need more income 10 years from now or 20 years from now just because of inflation. Imagine your Social Security check being reduced by 25%. What are you going to do to fill that gap? Annuities can be a great tool to do that with.
Okay, all right. So what are you talking to your clients about right now? Either folks who are you meeting for the first time or people who've been clients of yours for 5 or 10 years. Are you addressing Social Security, or do you do that with other parts of the investment management, saying we need to step on the gas here a little bit? Because that can be risky for some folks who are already in retirement. How do you help fill the gap?
So one of the biggest questions I get, or most often questions I get, is when is the best time to draw Social Security?
Right.
And the truth is, there's no best time. It depends on your situation. If you want to get the biggest benefit out of Social Security, you want to wait till you're age 70. However, a lot of people don't want to defer and wait that long, especially if they think there's going to be a reduction before they get there, right? But the earliest you can draw is 62. And full retirement depends on what your age is. So it really depends on what you're going to do in retirement. Maybe you have the assets and you want to retire at 62, but you want to do some part-time consulting. Well, you can only make about $19,000 a year if you draw at 62, between 62 and full retirement age, or else you get penalized and have to pay back $1 of every $2 of Social Security that you get. So it doesn't make sense if you're going to be an earner and do some part-time work and make more than $18,000 after you retire. Then you've got scenarios where people, they just don't know. They're like, well, I want to draw it out before it runs out. Right.
Thank you. So that was literally in my head. I'm like, I've got to ask Jerry this. What about the folks out there who are thinking that, say, well, if you guys are saying it might get reduced in 10 years, well, I better start as soon as possible. When you do that, you start with a reduction, right? Yeah,
and you'll lose quite a bit if you do that. My philosophy is I don't believe that the government will reduce. I think they're going to find a way to fix it.
And really? You're a lot more optimistic than I am, sir.
Well, here's the thing. We had this problem about 30 years ago. And that's when the government changed the age 65 for full benefits to when your birthday is, and some people are 66 in so many months or age 67. That doesn't sound like a lot, right? Going from 65 to 67, how did that really help them? But when you look at all the different people or all the amounts of people drawing Social Security, those 2 years bought them another 30 years in the plan. So it bought them more time. So what I could see maybe happening is for the younger generation, they may bump those numbers up again. You may not be able to get full benefits until you're 68 or 69, but people that are currently drawing, they may not reduce their benefits. They're basically just the younger generation. They're going to push it out because.
And while that might sound like a raw deal for younger folks who are listening to the show, look at that gives you almost 40 years of earnings and savings that you get to plan for, especially if you. I don't think that would happen necessarily to anybody like a year or two before retirement, right? It's not like you're going to be 62 and all of a sudden they're going to push it out on you.
So think of it this way from a political standpoint. Retirees are still one of the biggest voting blocs out there. Try reducing their benefits by 25% and see if you get elected to office.
Yeah.
No one wants to put that proposal up. But if you tell a 20 or 30-year-old that they're not going to be able to draw Social Security till 70, they don't care. They don't even think it's going to be there by then. So it's easier to get that kind of, thing passed versus, taking 25% of someone who's already drawing Social Security's benefit away.
Right. You know what? Can I get a little bit more, though, on the on-track retirement review? Is the on-track retirement review just for someone who is a few years away from retirement, or is this also a great review, a great reason to call in and talk to you if you're at the beginning or already in your retirement?
So the on-track review is for someone that is within 10 years of retirement, 50 or over, about $250,000 or more of investable assets, that they see that their retirement is on the horizon and they want to make sure that they're doing the proper planning. They want to ask those questions about Social Security. We want to look at the other investments that you have and see how that plays into drawing your Social Security. And then if you're already retired, we want to make sure that you stay retired, that you stay on track. So we want to look at what are the future taxes going to look like for you? What's going to happen if one of you or the spouse passes away? What happens to your income plan? So we do all of that on our on-track review. We stress test the portfolio. We look at the volatility in your portfolio. We look at the fees in your portfolio and making sure that you're truly getting value for the fees that you're paying. And we're offering that on-track review to the next 10 callers.
Folks, please call in for your own complimentary on-track retirement review. There's no cost to you, but you need to reach out to Jerry. We don't know if you need help if you don't call us here at 844-878-1293, 844-878-1293. Ask for it by name, your on-track retirement review. I've got more questions for Jerry. In fact, one of them is, I've saved a lot. I've invested on my own. Why would I need to work with a financial planner in retirement? When we get back, right after this.
As a good saver, you've been putting away money during your working years. Studies find that the biggest fear of retirees is running out of money. Market volatility isn't just the downward movement of stock prices, it's the size and frequency of change. The more dramatic the ups and downs, the higher the volatility. This can put savers who are newly retired or a few years away from being retired at greater risk. Today's generation of retirees is not receiving traditional pensions as our parents or grandparents did. Instead, we have retirement accounts such as 401ks or 403bs. These accounts typically expose your money to market risk. The last thing you want right before retirement is to lose a portion of the money you need for income. But how do you turn these accounts into a retirement income? Is it safe to keep all your retirement money sitting in the stock market? The last thing you want is to lose a portion of the money you need for income due to market loss. By working with a financial professional, you can learn how to turn a portion of your savings into an income stream for life and income for the life of your spouse if you're married. We all have moments in our lives when we wish we had taken action sooner. Don't let procrastination reign on your retirement parade. Act now before it's too late. Please call our office to set up your no-cost, no-obligation retirement income review today.
Welcome back, St. Louis. I am here with Jerry Means. I'm your host, Spike Spangle. We're talking about your retirement planning solutions. And this was a great question. I hear this from folks all of the time. Say, look, I've saved a lot. I've invested on my own. I seem to have done very well. Why would I need to work then with a financial planner when I get to retirement?
So listen, there's a lot of people out there. Maybe you've done a great job. You've got a decent rate of return on your portfolio. You've done really well. Maybe you even beat the index, right? A lot of the mutual funds out there don't even beat the index. Maybe you've done that. Maybe you think you have everything lined up, and you might have, but it doesn't hurt to get a second opinion. Now, even if you have all of that under control, I want you to ask yourself this. If something happens to you, does your spouse know what to do? Does your spouse know how to do that? And I think that's a very, important thing to talk about in the household. Because I'll often have, clients come in. I can think of one client in particular that came in, and I was talking with the husband, and I kept trying to talk with the wife also and include her in the conversation. And she was kind of playing on her phone. I think she was playing like Candy Crush or something. And I'm thinking, we're here doing your retirement plan. This is pretty important. And she said, he handles all of that, And I'm talking to Dave, and Dave's like, yeah, I take care of everything, and that's fine. And we started going through the plan, and we talked about, I asked about the pension, and I said, how much of your pension do you get, or does your spouse get if you pass away?
Yeah.
And he's like, well, I'm not really sure. I can't remember which option I took on that.
Oh my gosh.
Well, the wife looks up from the phone, right? She has her glasses on, and she's looking at me over the glass, and she goes, what do you mean you don't know? And so we called the company, and come to find out, she only gets half of the benefit. Okay, so that was somewhat good news. It was better than nothing.
It's better than the zero, yeah.
So she looks at her husband and says, well, what happens? What if I need that other, that's our biggest income source. What am I going to do about that other half? And I said, well, that's the kind of things that we help with. And this gentleman had done very well, managing the portfolio. But I said, what you don't know can hurt you. So those are the kind of things that we talk about. I also go through and make sure that we have everything properly beneficiaried. We do that on our on-track review. I want to make sure that you have properly named beneficiaries on each account, because this is an embarrassing for a client, but I called one time on a 401k, and I asked who the beneficiary was. And the beneficiary was his mother, who was deceased.
Oh, wow.
Right?
Yeah.
And so he had never had updated it and put his wife on there. And we would think that's a simple thing, but life gets away from people, right? And he had done that, before they were married, and he just never got around to making that change. So obviously we did that right then and there on the phone. But yeah, but that spouse, she instantly got more involved, right? And and they became a client. And every meeting now, she wants to know we play a lot of what if games, right? So it's those kind of things, and also, even if you've done very well, there are certain products that might benefit you in your portfolio, things like annuities for guaranteed income. Well, an annuity, you have to buy through an insurance carrier, and usually you have to have a representative, that's going to help you walk through that. So it's not something that you can just go do on your own normally. So there's certain products and tools that you might not even be aware of. The market has changed. There's things like structured notes. Well, the typical person investing in the market on their own is stocks, bonds, mutual funds, maybe exchange-traded funds. They may not know about some of these other tools that are out there that have come about over the last 4 or 5 or 6 years that are going to be very popular with this volatility that we're seeing.
Right, right. And you are correct. And first of all, thank you for sharing that story. That's what you do in the offices every day, is helping individuals, couples, kind of see what they don't know is out there. And just by asking a few of those questions, it's really helpful. The other thing is, it's totally different accumulating for 30 and 40 years. And yes, it sounds like this person did a very good job, but decumulating is totally different. How do you, as a financial planner, make sure that they don't run out of money? What kind of tools do you use?
Well, the first thing we want to do is we want to look at the market risk in their portfolio. Are they taking too much risk? Because that and healthcare expenses can be the number one thing that can ruin a retirement, right? You need to have some type of healthcare insurance, some type of long-term care plan, whether it's insurance or a strategy. But we also do a lot of income planning using annuities, not the variable annuity that we talked about earlier, but fixed and fixed index annuities. They have guaranteed lifetime income riders, which means you can trigger a lifetime income off of that annuity. And if you live 35 years in retirement and the balance goes to zero, the insurance company still has to keep paying you. So there's no way to run out of money. Now, that's backed by the credit paying ability of the insurance carrier. So you want to look at what the rating and the strength of the company is. But basically, it's a way to build your own pension plan. And it's a great tool to use. So we look at that. Now, unlike the old annuities, where if you die and there's still money left in the bucket, it goes to the insurance carrier. With the new generation annuities, it goes to your beneficiary, or your spouse can continue the income. So they've really changed. They're not my grandfather's annuities, you know.
Right. Because as you've said before, some of them have had a bad rep. Some of them you wouldn't give to your worst enemy. You wouldn't suggest using, and some of them could be the proper solution for you. We were talking about annuities here if the situation is correct, but you manage the overall assets. And once again, just going back to this question here of why would you want a financial advisor in retirement? Accumulation is different than decumulation. You don't know what you don't know. Which accounts should you take from first? And also going back to something we talked about earlier is what should you do first? Take your money from your investment accounts or start the Social Security? It's not a straight up answer for everybody.
Yeah, and a lot of people aren't even sure when they come in. I say, do you have your Social Security statement? And well, no, they haven't sent it to me. Well, they stopped mailing it out to a lot of people. So we have a cheat sheet in our office that we have prepared that we give to clients if they don't know what their Social Security is, so they can get in, create their account, and pull up their statement so we can look at what is your current benefit, what is it going to be at 62. But once we know your full retirement age benefit, we have a calculator that lets us see what your income would be on your Social Security at age 63, 64, right? It's not just 62, full retirement age, and 70. That's all they usually show on those statements. So we can kind of look at, well, what if you want to retire at 63? What's your number? We can look at that.
Yeah. Well, tell the folks real quick what the On Track Retirement Review can do for them if they call into the phone number.
So for the next 10 callers, we're going to offer to you at no cost, no obligation, our On Track Review. And this review is meant for someone who is 50 or over, has saved more than $250,000 for retirement, and they see their retirement on the horizon. When you come into the office, you'll meet with me personally. I'm going to sit down. I want to get to know you. And then we're going to talk about what is your Social Security benefit? What is the best strategy for you to draw it out? We're going to look at your investments. We want to see what are the fees that you're paying in your retirement plan. We're going to look at your long-term care and healthcare insurance. What is your plan if one of you get ill? And then we're going to talk about the risk in your portfolio. We're going to stress test that and make sure that you're not in danger of running out of money in retirement. And all of that is complimentary, no cost for the next 10 callers.
Thank you so much for watching What Retirement Means to You. Call in for your own on-track retirement review by calling 844-878-1293. Thank you so much for watching. We'll be back again next week.